Good evening. Calling to order the regular Planning Commission meeting for today, Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Chair Tidy Zamora,
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Sid Alterman,
Here.
Commissioner John Dinan,
Here.
and Commissioner Jones Stewart is absent. So we have Commissioner Alternate Armando Rodriguez
Here.
and Commissioner Natasha Basso.
Here.
Any Planning Commission member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comments. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the Planning Commission members. So we will open for public comments. There is nobody here in the audience. Anybody on Zoom? Okay, we will close public comments. We'll move on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are to be acted upon by a single action of the Planning Commission Board unless requested by an individual Planning Commission member or member of the public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by motion of the Planning Commission Board. We have item 2.1, which was the posting of the agenda. The agenda for the November 18th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting was posted to the City Community Center Bulletin Board, City Hall North and South Bulletin Boards, Post Office, City website, and email to the library on November 14th, 2025. Item 2.2, approval of the November 18th, 2025 agenda. This provides an opportunity for the Planning Commission or staff to recommend that an item be placed on the agenda for discussion or to adjust the proposed agenda to allow an item to be taken out of order. Item 2.3, approval of the October 21st, 2025 Planning Commission meeting minutes, having been read by the individual commissioners and stands approved as submitted. Those are the 3 items of consent calendar. I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as stated.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. No further comments. Roll call.
Chair Zamora,
Yes.
Vice Chair Alterman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dinan,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Basso.
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, moving on to item 3.1. Commissioner Ben Reuben is not here. We wanted to recognize him for his service for the past 5 years as a member of the Planning Commission Board, so we'll have to do that another time.
Yeah, Chair Zamora, real quick, if I can, he was unable to attend tonight, but we have kind of a plaque to hand him. Also, kind of a slide up here just to outline the years he was here. So Ben served on the Planning Commission from January 2020 up until this year, December 25 would be the end of his term. So maybe there is some other format that we could honor him in person, maybe another time. But at this point, we do have a plaque to formally present him when the time is appropriate.
Okay, awesome. Very good. Moving on to item number 4, the housing element progress update. So you have an update for us?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. David Niskanen, JB Anderson, Land Use Planning, contract planner with the City of Riverbank, preparing the update to the city's housing element for the 6-cycle planning period. And I'll start once the PowerPoint is up. There we go. Perfect. So as background, and you've seen this a little bit in previous presentations, but the housing element is one of the required elements of the city's general plan. It covers an 8-year planning period from 2023 to 2031 and requires review and certification from the State Department of Housing and Community Development. We've been working on the housing element for quite some time, both in preparation and through the HCD review periods, which I'll show you as far as the update overview, as well as a schedule on kind of where we've been and where we're at right now, and where we're going over the next 6 months or so, and finally in the adoption of the housing element. So This is kind of providing an overview of the process. So the step one is the workshops as well as outreach to property owners and interested parties. That's ongoing. We've conducted a series of workshops through 2024 and 2025. Step two is the preparation of the housing needs assessment, the sites inventory, the affirmatively furthering fair housing policies and programs, basically all the nuts and bolts that make the housing element document what it is. That process has been completed, though it's being updated pursuant to state housing element law and comments that we received from the State Department of Housing and Community Development. So it's kind of a update, wait until HCD gives you comments and update again, work with them, multiple meetings with the state on how the city can meet state housing element law. The next is to present the draft to Planning Commission and Council. That was done in late 2024. In addition to sending out for a 30-day public review period, which received numerous comments. Oh. Little echo there, no problem. The next step is the 90-day review period, which is the first review from HCD, and then subsequent review drafts. And that's where we're at right now, is reviewing and updating the housing element pursuant to HCD comments. The step 5 and 6 is where we're going to be in 2026, in which we bring the housing element document and everything associated with that, including the rezones that we propose, as well as the overlay district to meet California government code as it relates to affordable housing requirements, back to Planning Commission and City Council. And then finally, there's a 60-day certification review period by HCD. So what does that all mean as far as timeline? So in late 2024, we prepared the document and issued it for a 30-day public review period, which is required by state law. That went from October 15th to November 14th, 2024. We also presented the draft to the public and Planning Commission and City Council at meetings at October 15th and in November 12th of 2024. There's government code that requires us to take and consider all public comments that were received over a 10-day period. So that's why there's a delay in the November 14th end of that public review period and the submittal to HCD at December 2nd. So we took those comments, reviewed them, updated the housing element as necessary, and then submitted that to HCD for their first review. We received their comments on February 27th, 2025. It's all within the webpage as well as within the housing element document for your review. They were quite extensive, covering everything from programs to the affirmatively furthering fair housing section, with the majority of comments coming in to discuss the sites inventory section. So there's a lot more detail that's needed to meet state law as it relates to reviewing underutilized sites, vacant sites, rezone sites, and it's pretty intense as far as the additional review compared to previous versions of the housing element. So we also provided an update to council at their May 27th, 2025 meeting, and then submitted the second HCD review draft in June of this year. And we received the comments on that review on August 22nd, 2025, which were much less detailed than the first review. So we addressed a lot of the comments, but not all, basically. And more recently, we submitted the third HCD review draft to the state on November 12th. It's available on the city's website with a response matrix detailing the HCD's comments, our responses, page numbers where those comments can be found, in the hope to facilitate HCD's review. However, each subsequent review by HCD they have 60 days to review the document, and they literally take the entire 60 days to review the document and provide their findings. In past housing element cycles, there was a chance to meet with HCD and address some comments informally during that review period, so that when their formal findings were issued, you've addressed a lot of the comments already. So it's just mainly reducing the amount of comments you get and are able to move forward. But opportunity for that is really not available anymore. They really take the 60 days. And then, you know, you have to review the comments and address the comments in the housing element. And a lot of the comments are related to state law provisions in California Government Code. So it's, for example, and you can see it in the letter, they'll reference a specific government code section on addressing local area knowledge as relates to the affirmatively furthering fair housing section in concentrations of AFH factors like low-income populations, substandard housing, you know, things of that nature. But don't really give you a whole lot of guidance on how to navigate those requirements. And that's where discussions with the reviewer are important, you know, addressing their comments and getting their feedback informally is important. And then finally, completing the review, having it available for a public review period at each draft, and then sending it back to the state. Ultimately, the goal is to receive a nice letter from HCD saying that we've met all the statutory requirements, and that allows us to move forward to the next step of formal adoption, which is our hope in the next round of review, which should be completed on January 12th, 2026, the full 60 days. Some of the major updates to the housing element, and you've seen a couple of these slides before, is the new requirements of affirmatively furthering fair housing that's reviewing the city in a different lens when you're looking at both sites and the demographics, and looking at concentrations of areas that are integrated, areas that are segregated by a number of factors, including disabilities, familial status, female-headed households, things of that nature. And then looking at disparities in access to opportunities, physical barriers. For example, you know, Riverbank has the UPRR railroad that goes right in the middle of the city, and taking a look at that and seeing how that affects historical development in the city as well as new development and the different factors in the AFFH section. And then also looking at, for instance, the MID laterals as an example too. You know, particularly as it relates to the development of Crossroads and now Crossroads West compared to older parts of the neighborhood, of the city. And then we also provided additional analysis and programs for emergency shelters, transitional supportive housing, low barrier navigation centers, and residential care facilities. These are all new California Government Code state law requirements that require the city to update the code to allow these types of uses in specific zoning districts. So a lot of the local enforcement mechanisms, like not allowing specific uses in these particular uses, are kind of taken out of the city's hands, and the state has really decided what local jurisdictions can and can't allow in which areas. And then the bigger update in this whole HCD review process is the sites inventory, both in the way the analysis is done to calculate realistic capacity and density assumptions, but also the suitability of non-vacant sites, looking at mixed-use sites, and then also taking a very close look at the proposed rezone sites. What we've done is done advanced property owner notification to the sites that we propose to rezone, to make sure that they are aware that the city's proposing to rezone their sites from R1 or commercial or industrial to high density residential and mixed use. And also having the dialogue with those property owners to make sure that they're on board. You know, we don't want to go down this process and find out at the very end that the property owner does not want to do it. They have rights as a property owner, and they can decide whether or not they want to go down this process. And also working with them to make sure that they understand the implications of what we're proposing, both in rezoning the site to multifamily and what allowable uses would be allowed, primarily multifamily residential, but also the city's mixed use zone, which allows both for commercial and residential, and what that means. In your packet and what's been provided to you today, I had a phone conversation with one of the property owners, and he provided an email summarizing his concerns, that you can read in your packet tonight. And his request, eventually to do a lot line adjustment for a property that he owns next to it, and which has implications on what we do as part of the rezone, because the rezone covers the entire property by property line. We don't do split zoning or anything like that, because it just causes confusion in the future. So a lot of outreach has been done to each property owner, multiple certified letters and phone conversations and emails. And you'll see when you review the latest version of the housing element, that some of the rezone sites have been removed because of those conversations, and other ones have been adjusted from R3 to mixed use, because that's what the property owner wants to do. And that's all reflected in red line and strike through and highlights with the latest version, so you can see where the changes are. And this is the latest version of the sites inventory compared to the regional housing needs allocation. Up top is the RENA allocation, a total of 3,591 units spread among the different income categories. We also have the different areas that we're pulling from as far as the number of units in vacant land, underutilized land, anticipated number of accessory dwelling units that would be built over the planning period. Pipeline projects, which means the projects that are either approved or pending, like submitted and still processing by Josh and his team. And then, but not yet built, so we're able to capture those units. And then units within the downtown specific plan, including the Cannery District, as well as units that are left in the Crossroads West, including the existing subdivision and subdivisions that are being built out there. Took a look at how many vacant finished lots are left. And then finally, the rezone sites, which make up the majority of the shortfall that we identified in the very low and low income categories. And then the total number of units and then the buffer that we have over the regional housing needs allocation. It's important to note that this sites inventory does not include the proposed Riverwalk specific plan, though it's referenced in the document as a project that has been submitted to the city, but it's not included in the sites inventory. And then we also updated the programs pretty substantially. You'll see in the document of the latest programs related to the by right approval process that state law now requires. SB 35, which is a permit streamlining act that was approved a number of years ago that we need to address in the housing element. And then providing also updates to the website as relates to planning and financing transparency, impact fees, and application fees. And there's also ongoing upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant that have been multiple presentations to city council and contracts awarded to consultants to work on those feasibility documents. That's been reflected in the new program in the housing element to track those and make sure there's some alternatives and analyzed as part of the housing element cycle. And then we also consolidated the programs related to the updates to the Riverbank Municipal Code in a whole number of areas. So as it relates to the timeline we have now, as I stated, we submitted the third HC review draft to the state this month after a 7-day public review period. We did receive additional comments from some folks, about 5 comments. We have an appendix in the housing element that details all of the comments received, summarizing the different comment categories, and then our responses is where those responses can be found, or that information can be found in the housing element. So we've received quite a bit of public comments on the housing element through each version of the document, and we felt that it would, for transparency reasons, to include a detailed response to each of the comments. We can't capture every single comment in that review, in that appendix, but we've categorized each of the comments in different areas that we can address. Finally, we are looking at coming back to Planning Commission and City Council in the spring after we receive the HCD's comments on the latest version of the housing element, and then finally submit the document for certification in the spring after City Council approval. And the action that City Council and Planning Commission will take in spring will not only include the general plan amendment for adoption of the housing element, but it will also include the rezones. So that's why there's been a lot of outreach to property owners to make sure they're aware of this process, as well as our intent to include basically everything we need to make sure it's included. So when we submit the housing element document for HCD certification, that it gets certified. So. And comments, we're always looking for additional comments on the housing element. Anyone can submit comments via the email, riverbankhousing@riverbank.org. And then updates to the housing element are found on the city's website. So that was updated with the latest version, as well as the matrix of responses to HCD's comments. And then the timeline for the 7-day public review period, but we can always accept comments even during this process. So, and I'm available to answer any questions, Josh, as well. Thank you.
The only comment I have then is, at the time that the Planning Commission and the City Council review the final form, all the rezones that are indicated in the housing element will take place.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll be noticing, we'll not only notice for the housing element in the paper, but we'll also send notices to each of the property owners in the rezone, as well as the 300-foot that's required around the rezoning side. So there's quite a bit of public notice that it's required when we come back to Planning Commission for that action.
Okay, awesome. Any other comments from any other commissioners? Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to the process moving forward.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Next, item 5.1, Joshua Mann has an update for us.
Sure do. Thank you. Good evening again. I'm just waiting for my PowerPoint to come up. So I kind of made mention of this at the last Planning Commission meeting. I wanted to give kind of an overview or an update as to what's going on in the shopping center. So just kind of have some slides to point at and walk you through it. Feel free to jump in at any questions come up as I go through this. I don't mind. So as I mentioned, I just kind of termed this as an update, and mainly because a lot of the approvals that have happened out in the shopping center can be considered administrative. So they're not necessarily an item that comes before this commission. Well, let me back up. So just kind of going back to the birth of the shopping center. So as you all probably are aware, Costco was the first kind of user or tenant of the shopping center. So I've kind of outlined them as in green, and then just kind of below the main Costco warehouse is a fueling facility which came along with it. So the Costco itself, its grand opening was in June. Believe it or not, it's been over a year. It's kind of crazy how fast it goes. And then just kind of a interesting picture I found as I was going through these the last few days was the actual underground storage tanks of the fueling facility. So the next kind of tenant or user that we saw was Chase Bank. So Chase Bank, as you get near the Oakdale-Clarabelle intersection, they're out there along Clarabelle. Their grand opening was in April of this year, April 24th. Kind of the next user, which was going on about the same time Chase was under construction, was Wendy's. So Wendy's is along Machado Parkway, which is kind of the western boundary of the city, just a little bit further west from there. Wendy's grand opening was in June of 2025. Again, just some pictures showing the construction. Following that was Raising Cane's. So Raising Cane's is kind of at the main entrance on Clarabelle of the shopping center. Again, with some construction photos, again, they were open on August 12th of this year. So they've been open just a few months now. And then that kind of led into the next opening user. So as we get into kind of these larger buildings, we term these are the anchor tenants. So they look at some of these, they call them majors 2 and 3. So majors 2 and 3 is Home Goods, TJ Maxx. Their grand opening was in June of 2025, June of this year. So then kind of the next major would be major 4. And so this will be Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby is currently under construction. I have just a conceptual elevation to below the picture to kind of give you an idea of what it will look like. And I should have also mentioned that all the architecture will be the same out there. It's all consistent. And so you'll kind of see as these are going up, they all kind of have a similar theme or consistency throughout the shopping center. So I should also mention Hobby Lobby. I believe they broke ground this week. They've been doing a lot of site preparation out there the last month or two. And so we should start to see that building going up fairly soon. And what's a little bit different on this building, this will be a tilt up construction, meaning the walls will be formed on the ground and tilted up. So that will give you something to look at fairly quickly here in terms of the building. And then kind of subsequent to the major 4s, majors 5 and 6. So that kind of finish out the major buildings that are within the shopping center. So majors 5 and 6 are going to be just kind of to the east of Hobby Lobby. And there'll be one building with 2 tenants for the most part. It's unknown at this time what the tenants will be. As soon as we're able to make that public or we know, we would be happy to share that with everybody. And then kind of getting into the other pads in the area. So we have the major tenants and then subsequently the smaller tenants, we're terming those as pads. So you see this term used quite a lot in our department. So pads 1 and 2 are kind of the pads that would be along Freddie Lane and Oakdale Road. We kind of look at these as the food users, meaning that they would be kind of the same as what you see across the street in terms of like Chipotle, Five Guys, where that area is all kind of the food users. So pads 1 and 2 will mainly be food tenants. So here's the approved architecture. It's a little bit hard to see, but there will be some outdoor patio dining areas that are incorporated in both pads 1 and 2. Here's the elevations of pad 2. Again, you can kind of see it better on this elevation, but you'll look on the left and right and you'll see kind of the overhang outdoor patios that will be utilized by both those restaurants. And then, oh, sure.
Are there tenants lined up to go into 1 and 2?
So my understanding, I mean, keep in mind Broman Development, they have leasing agents that are actively out there right now trying to fill all these, suites or spots. So it's my understanding most of pad 1 is leased out. I'm not sure offhand who those users are yet, but and then in pad 2, I think the majority of those are as well are leased out. Now we have gotten some tenant improvement applications. And so the way these are mainly being constructed is, the developer, Broman Development, will build the shell building. And then as each tenant comes in, they'll kind of construct their own restaurant or own spot out themselves. So we have gotten some plans, I think for pad 2, kind of on your far right, for a company called Paris Baguette, looks like a bread sandwich type restaurant. So we are starting to see those applications dropped off in our office. Oh yeah, Jersey Mike was another one that has already submitted. But it can literally change day to day as we get more. And I believe once the shell building actually gets built, we'll probably see a lot more activity and may even see some signs out there of future tenants. So getting into kind of the center of the shopping center. So right in kind of the front of Home Goods TJ Maxx, there'll be what we term pad 14. I believe this will be Mancini's Sleep World, and this is like a mattress company. And so here's their approved architecture. Again, it's sort of similar, and we'll get into it, as the Sutter Gould building where they have the large windows. Actually, that's the next one. So the next one is what we call Pad 11. It's kind of morphed into just being known as Sutter Urgent Care, Sutter Gould. So that will be going directly across Machado Parkway from Wendy's. This building, although I'm just showing you the approved elevations, this building, for the most part, the exterior is basically finished. So if you go out there, they're going and pitting on, I think, the awnings right now and some other add-ons, but the exterior is mainly done. So I believe their focus now is working on the medical tenant improvement and interior and doing all the specialized work that needs to be done for the urgent care. So my last slide here, I just kind of wanted to hit on some, basically what we have not seen yet. So the pads in red, which we haven't seen, and when I say haven't seen, we haven't seen any planning application for approval, or we have not seen any building permit submittals. Now on pads 7, 10, and 13, I did highlight those because we have had some interest, some tenants reach out to do some preliminary due diligence. So there is probably some activity that's going to happen on those 3 pads right away, or fairly soon after the new year, I would imagine. But I just kind of wanted to show you as we get in here. So what you have is, I think that's pad 9 that's left next to Raising Cane's that still has not been kind of spoken for. And again, the developer and their leasing agents, they may be working on deals that we're just not aware of yet. We kind of get involved once they submit a building permit application or a planning application. At that point is when we kind of become aware of it ourselves. Lastly, I just wanted to hit on the residential component, because the underlying land use designation of the shopping center is mixed use. And so up in the top corner in yellow, just wanted to highlight on those. So that is the residential component to the shopping center. Broman Development, the master developer of the shopping center, does have the ability to construct up to, I think it's between 250 and 300 residential units. I believe their proposal, at least the preliminary proposal that I've seen that's kind of sketched on the site plan, allows, I want to say it was 252 residential units. These were envisioned as being market rate. They're not affordable units by any means. But we just do not, at this point, have a planning or a building permit application submitted. I would imagine as we get into the new year in the spring, summer, we might see some activity on the housing part of the shopping center. I believe that's my last slide, but like I said, I'd be happy to answer if you had any questions or just want to talk about any particular issues or items you've seen at the shopping center.
We could go to the original Crossroads. Staples has left. Do we have a new tenant on the horizon?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner Dinan. So we do, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not sure why Staples left, but we do have a new tenant. It is Boot Barn. I believe they have a store on Sisk Road in Modesto and a store in Turlock. So we have already issued them their tenant improvement permit, and they're actively, prepping the store. I believe, unfortunately, it won't be open until the new year. I don't think they're going to be open before Christmas time, but I believe it's sometime in January or February when they will be open.
Other comments? Okay, thank you, Josh. We'll move on to item 6, the county referrals. There's item 6.1. Staff to provide an update on a referral received from Stanislaus County for an ordinance amendment for truck parking.
Yeah, good evening again. So the referral that we received from the county, it does have some, I shouldn't say some, it does have an impact on the city in some way, because we may see applications for truck parking facilities that are within our sphere of influence. So it could be within our general plan area, within our sphere of influence. And then at that point, the county would typically would look to us to ask, you know, would this be acceptable under your general plan designation? Or whatever may, you know, question may come up during that project. So I just wanted to share this. We received this, I think, last week. So I think the county's going through, they've been having a lot of tough issues with truck parking. I want to say there was an article in the Modesto Bee recently that kind of discussed or outlined some of the issues. But this is kind of in response. They're going through and doing an ordinance amendment to try to help regulate it and try to help solve some issues that they've been having with truck parking. Now, my understanding in Riverbank, there is one particular truck parking facility that's in a code enforcement case, and that's on Patterson Road as you head west out of the city. They have reached out, and me and Teresa, we met with their representative to kind of talk about specifics of their project. So we may see an application from them in the future. And again, this would be a county application. They would just be looking to us as the city to see if it's consistent with our general plan and if it's being developed to our standards or some manner like that. So again, I know it's quite a bit of information, but on the surface, it's just an ordinance amendment to deal with truck parking in the agricultural areas.
Okay, very good. That is the end of our items, unless any commissioner wants to make any comments or have any questions for anything. All right, 6:36, meeting is adjourned.